tools, and some days the tools are winning. So good morning. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Sharon Burton, in case you didn't know that, and I look like that. By the way, I kind of look like that now. I've cut most of my hair off, but my son took that picture, so that picture means a lot to me for a number of reasons. It is, in fact, how I look, and my son took that, so that's always cool. In case you don't know who I am, and you probably don't, because why should you? I solve post-sales customer experience problems. So I do research into how people feel about product instructions. And by feel, I mean feel. I don't necessarily do a lot of research into what people are doing with them. Actually, I do a lot of looking into how people feel about product instructions, because I think that's the most important part. I support clients in creating better product instructions that lead to better customer experiences. And then I teach communication at various universities and things like that. So that's kind of what I do. Today we have as a supporting role, we have DCL. So if you have a question, if you're having a problem hearing me, if there's just an issue, feel free to type in the questions area. DCL is supporting me. They're going to help you. And let's say thank you to Data Conversion Labs for hosting this webinar. They are fantastic in doing this. I'm so excited that they have been supporting the industry with free webinars and educational opportunities and things like that. And because of that, we're going to talk for just a moment about DCL, because they've been kind enough to do this for us. They are pretty much the place to go if you have content issues. Like, for example, you are looking at probably changing your content development tools because they're no longer supporting the business goals that you have. And you've got buckets and buckets of legacy content. You can't just walk away from that. But converting that can be a nightmare. And so one of the things that Data Conversion Labs will help you with is actually doing that conversion. And not only helping you with that conversion, they'll help you figure out how to get XML, HTML, ebooks, all kinds of things. And not just for a few things, for huge things. One of the things that I think is the biggest deal is when you're converting existing legacy content into the newer ways of developing content, you want to leverage your existing content when you're creating new content. And that's the tool that they have called Harmonizer. I evaluated that for a client recently. I can tell you that the pricing is more than fair. And what they do is they go through your content with this tool and figure out what content is really similar to what else. So you can kind of normalize your content and then start really getting the business benefits out of it. So they've got every client under the sun. I mean, really every client under the sun. So if you're thinking, well, this is just, somebody out of their garage. No. You could not be more wrong. They pretty much help everybody, big and small. So regardless of the size of your data, of your content, they're going to be able to help you, because really, if they could help Boeing, your content probably doesn't have any unique challenges to them. Doesn't even matter what your industry is. They can help you regardless of what your industry is. They've got a wide experience. And so let's say thank you. I'll do a virtual round of applause. Thank you for supporting us and doing this webinar. And that's cool. I like that. All right, so we're going to start with a quick overview, because we're a mixed audience. We have people from tech hubs, from marketing, and from customer experience in this webinar. So I want to spend a moment or two introducing each of these fields to each other up front, because as it turns out, we're all doing really related things. And I think that that's a really important thing for us to think about and to understand. So the customer experience field. Customer experience field is a relatively new formal field. Customer experience looks at the sum of all experiences a customer has with a company. And the customer is the arbiter of those experiences. So the company does not get to decide that their customer experience is really good. The customers tell the company. And so there's this whole field looking at customer experience, and customer journeys, and customer maps, and how to improve the experience a customer has with the company. So that's customer experience. Marketing, as most of us know, communicates the value of a product or service to customers. Now, I know that marketing often has kind of a bad reputation out there as being kind of like, if you will, the lawyers, you know, in that, not like they're, but in that they say things that aren't necessarily true, you know, like that. I've been in marketing now for quite some time, doing marketing for clients for my own business, and I got to tell you, good marketing is not that way. So we don't get to call them marketing weenies anymore because that's not, in fact, what good marketing is. Good marketing is powerful. Then there's technical communication, which is the field from which I come, where we create information about technical processes or technical products. These instructions, or this information, is usually instructional, not always, but usually. I've included here a website for the professional organizations for each. These are U.S.-based, so if you are in Europe or Australia, for example, these professional organizations may be different, but they will give you a place to start. So if you want to learn more about customer experience or marketing or technical communication, you can take a look at those websites. So I'm a member of Customer Experience and of STC, for example. And I think that there's a lot to be had by kind of doing that cross-browser, cross-training sort of thing. All right, so if you're in customer experience, you probably know this. If you're in marketing, you may know this next section. If you're in tech comms, it may have never occurred to you. So just hang loose. I've got stuff for everybody. I just want to make sure that we're all working from the same foundation. So we're going to start by looking at the cost of acquiring and keeping customers. So getting customers is one of the most expensive things a company does. Customer acquisition cost, which you will see referred to as the CAC, or as I like to say, the CAC, which I think is fun, is the cost of convincing people to buy your product or service. And that cost is all the sales and marketing efforts that your company goes through divided by the total number of customers you get. Usually it's put together over the cost of a year, and you would be shocked at how much it costs to acquire a new customer. Now, in my experience, business to consumer is typically less, simply because the consumer products are typically less. Now, obviously, if you are selling, you know, Porsches, it's more. But for most consumer products, it's going to be a smaller amount. Customer acquisition cost is going to be less. Business to business is typically more. You have longer sales cycles, typically in business to business, and the products are typically more expensive. So it's typically the customer acquisition cost is typically higher. Now, why do we care about the customer acquisition cost? A number of reasons. The most important is it costs 6 to 7 times more money to acquire a new customer than to sell to or retain an existing customer. So if we have high customer acquisition costs, that might be a problem. It might not, depending on customer churn. Losing customers is even more expensive than acquiring them, because what customer churn is customers leaving out the back door as you welcome the new ones in the front door. So you spend all this money to get a customer, and they walk in, they pick up your product, they pay for it perhaps once, they buy your product, and then they leave, and they don't take your product with them. So you spent all that money to acquire them, you get the one-time amount that they spent on your product, and then they never speak to you again. Off they go. So while you may have a lot of customers, if your customer churn is high, that's huge. It's one of the most expensive business problems you can have. So an entire industry exists to analyze customer churn. There are many, many reasons. The products aren't any good. The marketing lied to you. Yes, there is bad marketing. Using the product is too difficult and hard. The suitability of the product was not good. Things like that. Bain & Company has done some research, and they have looked into customer retention, customer churn, customer retention. And they say a 5% increase in customer retention. So if we can just get 5% of those people to not walk out the back door, we could increase profitability by as much as 75%. So you can see that customer churn is really an enormously expensive thing to do. And by the way, the money we spent to acquire those customers is money our competitors don't have to spend, because we've convinced them the problem they've got is solvable with a product like ours. So when they walk out our back door, they go to a competitor. Competitor didn't have to spend all of that money. So it's a huge problem. Then there's the customer lifetime value. And this is the existing customers are already engaged with our products or services. They've walked in the house, they sat down, we've gotten them some coffee, and they're admiring the windowsills. Oh, well, those are very clean. They're saying, oh, yes, we say, we've done a lot to make those good, and have some cookies. That's the customer lifetime value. The longer they stay with us, the more they are going to spend money with us. So we spend the customer acquisition cost to get them in the house, and now they're staying in the house. We don't have to keep spending the customer acquisition cost to keep them in the house. We just have to provide a good product for them so they will keep buying more stuff. It's also much easier to sell to existing customers than it is to new customers. So once we've gotten them in the door, they continue to buy things. We continue to make more money off of them. And the customers who are really happy become our evangelists, which is free marketing. And this is where marketing just jumps up and down with excitement, because they want the best place to be is to have a group of customers who are so happy with our products. They're out there evangelizing our products to other people for free. Think of the buzz around the new Apple release. All of the Apple weenies are out there telling people, oh, you should get the new Apple, you should get the new phone, you should get the new phone, you should get the new phone. That's like the best possible place to be. So marketing metrics have said that the probability of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%, very high. The probability of selling to a new prospect is only 5 to 20%, which is really quite low, frighteningly low. So we want that our customer lifetime value is an important metric to know. What is a customer worth to us once we've gotten them in the door and they're sitting on our couch? All right, one of the problems is return rate. Because companies look at return rates. Again, there's a whole industry who looks at return rates. Something interesting to know is returns have increased 21% since 2007. And 5% of all returns are related to actual product defects. And that's about right. I've done some work in the consumer hardware industry, and about 5% of the products coming out of the factory have actual defects. 27% of the product returns are buyer's remorse. Now, obviously, these are where people have provided information. Obviously, we can't read their minds. By buyer's remorse, people get home and they go, you know what, I really didn't need this after all, or, you know, I shouldn't have spent the money, that kind of thing. The number that's really interesting to me is 68% of returned products are no trouble found. There's nothing wrong with the product. There isn't a problem with the product. And this ties to, I think, I'm pretty sure, that the average U.S. consumer spends 20 minutes trying to make a device work before giving up and returning it to the seller. Now let's think about that for a minute. That doesn't mean in 20 minutes people are using this thing as though they were born to use it, right? I think that 20 minutes is a consumer feeling confident that they can feel confident they can figure it out. So we have a 20-minute window to help our customers feel confident that they can be confident. More about that in a few minutes, but that's a real important thing to think about. All right, bottom line, customer experience increases sales. And this is a bottom line thing. Remember, customer experience is the outcome of all the touch points your customer has with your organization. And that is a customer-centric perception. Your customer makes that decision, that they had a good experience or a bad experience. And it's not necessarily just one experience, although one bad experience can be the tipping point. If all of the previous experiences have been iffy, one bad experience can send your customer out the back door. That said, if all the previous experiences have been good experiences, one bad experience is probably not enough to send that customer out the back door. Now, best-in-class companies are focused tight on customer experience because at this point, most companies' products or services are comparable with their competitors. So most companies are realizing that for all intents and purposes, we are all selling the same kind of thing in our industries. And the differentiator is that customer experience, and that customer experience is worth money in our pockets. So 81% of companies delivering a good customer experience are outperforming their competitors, which means odds are better than good. Regardless of the company you are working for, your company is focused on customer experience. Okay? All right, so there's that. Because customer experience is such a big deal, all touch points our customers have with our products and with our company matter. Product instructions are central to the post-sales customer experience. Remember I said that 20 minutes of feeling confident that you can feel confident? That 20 minutes is spent in part working with product instructions. And if product instructions aren't helpful, your customer is going to return your product. And that increases customer churn. They're not going to return your product and buy another product from you. They're going to return your product and go to one of your competitors in hopes that those instructions will be better. And there is some research now into the idea that customer instructions are starting to be used in the pre-sales part, especially in the business-to-business, because companies are spending so much money on a business-to-business product. They are starting to ask for the product instructions as part of the pre-sales cycle. They want to see if the product instructions will let them use the product. That's huge, right? I am beginning to think that TechCom is a subset of the customer experience field. We have so much in common with customer experience. And TechCom focuses almost exclusively on the post-sales process. Again, understanding that in some places it's becoming part of the pre-sales. But if our product instructions for our products are bad, our customers can't use our products. And that upsets them and customers and makes them angry. And upsetting customers and making them angry leads to a negative customer experience. So what is it that people think about product instructions? I have some answers. However, there's not a lot out there. I've run a poll the last couple of years. I am wrapping up the poll for 2014. I am this year not the only person who's doing it. There are a couple of companies who are out there looking at how customers feel about product instructions. Not what people are actually doing. This isn't ethnographic work, but what people are feeling, what they think about what they're doing with product instructions, the quality of the product instructions, and so on. Now, tomorrow you're going to get a link in email to a free version of the research from 2013, and then hopefully you can just kind of, you'll be getting the 2014 stuff when I've got bandwidth to write it up. It's not easy or fast. But here's, year over year, some interesting things that comes out of the research I'm doing. About 91% of your customers are using the product instructions. Now, that does not mean people are sitting down and reading the product instructions from cover to cover because it's so exciting they can't wait to see how it ends, right? That's not what's happening. People are reporting that they are using the product instructions to set up products or when they get in trouble or other things. So nobody is sitting down and reading the thing cover to cover. Well, maybe a couple of people, but by and large, people aren't doing that. But they are referring to them. So if you've got the myth in your company that no one uses product instructions, it's a myth, and it's wrong. People are using them. Again, customer experience. About 2/3 of your customers say only sometimes product instructions make sense. Now, what that means is that 1/3 of your customers don't understand your instructions at all. So 2/3 say, well, sometimes always, but sometimes, and the always number was very low. Sometimes the product instructions make sense. Now think about that. If we're trying to provide as a differentiator a positive customer experience for our products, but 2/3 of our customers only sometimes understand our instructions, we got a problem. Yes, our customers have bought our products, but you know what? This is increasing customer churn. And it's certainly making customers unhappy. That's a bad thing. 51%, just over half, worry that if the product instructions are insufficient, that the rest of the product was also skimped on. That's a very bad place to be. That means half of the customers holding our products, looking at the instructions that don't make sense, are worried about the overall quality of the rest of the product. And we don't want that. Think of all the effort marketing is putting in to our products are wonderful, you should buy them. And then customers are buying them, and half of them are worried that, well, the instructions are bad, and that must mean the rest of the product is not very good too. This isn't a happy place. Customer experience people are jumping out of their skin at this because all the effort that they're putting into to improve customer experience is falling apart right there. About 25% of people responding report that if the product instructions aren't good, they don't feel confident about the product. That's 1 in 4 of your customers. So product instructions go to customer confidence in the product, which is why I think, certainly in the business-to-business world, customers are asking for product instructions pre-sales because they want to see what the instructions look like so they can feel more confident about their purchase. If you are asking a company to spend $100,000 for your product and the instructions aren't very good, better we know that before we spend that $100,000. Odds are good your product is similar to your competitors, and all things being equal, we'd like to spend $100,000 on a product that has decent product instructions that we can feel confident about. So bad product instructions reduce confidence in the product overall. Not a good place. And this is a number that holds up year over year, and this one is amazing to me. Half of our customers wouldn't purchase from the company again if the product instructions are bad. Half. This goes directly to customer churn, running right out the back door. I bought this product. I couldn't figure out the instructions. I'm not happy with it. I will not purchase from this company again. And this intuitively probably makes sense to you because we've all bought a product from a company, gotten home, tried to use that product, and the instructions didn't make sense. And then we had to call customer support. And the customer support people didn't seem to know as much about the product as we did. And we didn't know much because we couldn't figure it out from the instructions. This is very, very frustrating. And this is so frustrating that half of our customers won't purchase from us again. If we want to reduce customer churn, we improve product instructions. That's how we do it. If we could think about this, for those of us who are in tech comp, for those of you who are in any of these 3 fields, if we could drop the customer churn by 20%, 20%, that's not that much. Heck, even 10%. That's gigantic. For the people who are tracking those numbers, if they can drop customer churn by 10 to 20%, that's like massive bonus time. Nobody's looking at product instructions as a way to do that, except that's a way to do that. And I bet we could drop that much easy. And here's the really bad news. 90% of customers, 90% of the people who responded to my opinion poll are angry and regret the purchase when they can't use the instructions. And I think every single dollar spent on improving customer experience is thrown away right there. So if your company is spending millions of dollars a year to improve the customer experience and isn't looking at the product instructions, every dollar has just been wasted. If they can't use the instructions, they're angry and they regret the purchase. These are not evangelists. These are the people who are out there telling everybody in sight, oh, I wouldn't buy from that company. My God, that was a nightmare. We could never figure out how to use this product. We wasted all that money. We couldn't figure it out. We wasted time. I can't believe those people. That's what's happening when the product instructions aren't useful. And here's something interesting. About 25% of the respondents feel the product is defective if they can't use the product instructions. So, I mean, that's not a giganto number. It's not, 75% or 90%, but it's enough. 25% think the product is defective. And remember, only 5% of product returns are actually found to be defective. So that's 20% of the people returning the product who feel the product is defective, and it's not. That's an interesting number. But interestingly, because I asked this question, 2/3 of the people responding will not pay more for a product for useful product instructions, which tells me that people feel that good product instructions are part of the price that they're paying. They shouldn't have to pay more. It should be part of the product. It's in essence part of a working product are good product instructions. And I find that very interesting. I've wondered if people would pay more for a product if the product instructions were good. The answer is no, they won't. That's part of a real product. 71% of the respondents say that good, clear product instructions makes them feel the company cares about them. That's customer experience. That's money in the bank. That is absolutely money in the bank. That is so gigantic you can't even begin to talk about that. Good product instructions makes the customer feel like the company cares about them. And that's wonderful. So, all right, so there's some things that people think about product instructions. So, okay, so what do we do? How do we get good product instructions? What is it that we look for? Well, and by the way, there's an entire field in this. If you've got TechCom professionals in your workplace, start asking them. These are high-level things to start looking for. These are the kinds of things that very often my clients come to me and they say, we don't know what to do. We know that our customers don't like our product instructions. Help us. Help us fix them. And these are the kinds of problems that I see day after day after day. Let's start with, in no order of importance, product-centric versus user-centric. So product-centric, you see a lot of content that is written things like the widget was designed to, or the widget returns the message, or the widget prints the report. A lot of sentences talking about what the product does. User-centric is using the product, you can do these things. You see this message on the screen. Your report is printed. You can do these things. So we're turning it from what the product does to what the customer is doing with the product. And it seems like a subtle shift, but it's a very important shift for our customers because people buy our products to solve problems. So we want to talk directly to our customers. It really is as though you're sitting there talking to them. My recent favorite quote is, nobody wants an iron. They want wrinkle-free clothes. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, if I just had an iron, everything would be okay. That's not the problem people have. They don't wake up in the morning and think, if I just bought that company's product, it would all be all right. No, they've got a problem. Wrinkle-free clothes, bad marketing lead tracking, whatever the problem is, and they're looking at your product to solve that problem. So if you talk about your customer and the problems they're facing and how to solve those in your product instructions, you are right out of the box going to be creating better product instructions. Nobody cares. Everybody assumes your product does things. They want to know how to solve their problems. Then there is active voice present tense. So passive voice, or future tense, can be things like, and this is not an exhaustive list, but things like the widget will print the report. Future tense, will print at some point. We don't know. Passive voice might be, these steps may prevent the brake pedal from functioning. The email will be sent if a network is found. You can read those. So active voice or present tense or a better rewrite in general are things like your report prints. During these steps, the brake pedal does not work. Your email is automatically sent the next time a network is found, and so on. The reason that active voice present tense is better is you're talking directly to your customers. You're doing it in an active sort of way. And here's a subtle thing that's built into at least English. Future tense makes the timing uncertain. So what it sounds like is, well, your report should print, we hope. Well, call us, actually, if it does, because frankly, we could never actually get that to work for us, but we'd love to know what you did to make that work. There's an uncertainty. Will it print now? Will it print 10 minutes? Will it print next week? We don't want that uncertainty because product instructions are the official voice of the product. We are the authorities on this product, and so we need to sound authoritative. Like we know what we're doing instead of like, well, we don't know. It could, it could not, it's hard to know. Call us. Just call us and let us know what you did. We'd love to know. We don't want that. We want to sound authoritative. We want it in the now. And then we want to write appropriately for our audience. So if you are writing to a specialized audience, perhaps you are writing to systems administrators, you could say something like, use the Windows authentication mode to gain access to your credentials. But if you're writing to more of a consumer audience, you can't say that. You will make them cry. They will burst into tears. They don't know what that means. So if you're writing to more of a consumer audience, you would say something like, on the Start menu, click Settings. Open the Authentication folder and double-click Credentials. Do you see the difference? Both of them are actually communicating the same kind of information, but it's audience appropriate. And this is so important. We have all read instructions and thought, I have no idea what that means. I'm a smart person. I know a lot of things. I don't know what that means. And I wouldn't have the first idea how to do that. That's an example of a company writing to the wrong audience. And I see this personally. I see this in companies where there's a big engineering culture because the engineers assume everybody knows what we know, and so we need to have the engineering ease. And that's a bad idea even for other engineers, because even other engineers aren't necessarily specialists in the kind of engineering that our engineers are. So audience appropriate. The data transfer rate is determined by the error checking algorithm used. I understand what that means because I've got kind of an engineering background. Regular people don't understand what that means. Regular people are going to look at that and go, do I determine what this error checking algorithm is? And by the way, I don't know what an algorithm is, and I didn't know I needed to know that to use the phone, and now they start crying. But if we change that to be more audience appropriate, we can say, sometimes your photos may not upload as fast as other times. If your photos are too slow to upload, try a faster internet connection if available, such as a coffee shop. You see how we have explained to them why this isn't happening and what the problem might be, and we've provided them a solution in a way that they can understand. Now, please, oh please, do not walk away from this thinking I'm saying dumb down the information. We're not dumbing down anything. We are speaking appropriately to our audience. And if you're not sure who your audience is, oh gosh, you need to find that out because that's critical. You have to find out who your audience is and then speak appropriately to them. Something to think about, the average reading level in the United States is 5th grade. Now, that does not mean that Americans are dumb. What that means is we have a wonderful culture and a wonderful place where there are people who don't speak English as their first language. They speak English well enough to manage day-to-day, and I've lived in 2 different countries outside of the U.S., and I know what that level is. It means that you can function day-to-day in the second language. But it's not your strong point, and you can manage at about a 5th grade level. So if you're writing to general consumers, you need to write to that 5th grade level, because the person who is reading your instructions, English may be a 2nd or 3rd or 4th language for them. There are a number of other reasons why you would want to write to that level. But certainly, just because you're writing to people for whom English is probably not their first language, and you want them to understand. So you have to write more simply. Obviously, if you're writing to engineers, that may or may not be what you do. All right, short sentences are easier to understand because there are fewer ideas in a short sentence. And you're asking people when they're using product instructions to keep that information in their working memory. And so you've got to provide them with fewer ideas at one time so they can keep it in their working memory while they're following those instructions. No more than 25 words per sentence. And this is not a limit that I set that I'm trying to evangelize to the world. As it turns out, the neuroscience shows we can keep about words, no more than 25 words, in working memory while we're doing something else. So 25 words or less, and the closer you get to less, the better off you are. This is not an impossible thing. It may feel weird at first, but your writing is much, much clearer if you do these short sentences, fewer ideas per sentence. Which brings us also to short paragraphs. I know, we all know paragraphs are groups of related sentences. I know we all know that. I just like to say that in case somebody says paragraph, you say. It's a group of related sentences. No more than 3 to 5 sentences per paragraph. Again, neuroscience is showing that's about as much as we can keep in working memory to do things. So as much as I would love to be able to, establish standards that the whole world has to follow, I can't. But neuroscience is showing that this is how our brains work. This is how our brains process information, and this is how we need to do this to help people who are trying to follow our instructions and work with a product. And then there are short sections. As you all know, sections are groups of related paragraphs. No more than 3 to 5 paragraphs before you have a section heading. Do not label every paragraph. In fact, labeling every paragraph with a heading hinders comprehension. The balance is 3 to 5 paragraphs and then a section heading. This also lets your content be easily scannable, which is also what people are doing with product instructions. They're scanning the instructions, trying to find the information they're looking for, and having headings at every 3 to 5 paragraphs makes the information very scannable, which helps people find the information they're looking for. All right. So now we kind of figure out how to write that. We know to be appropriate to our audience. We know kind of how to put together our sentences and our paragraphs. Okay, so what kind of information should we be including? Well, I've stolen this with permission. I swiped it fair and square after I got permission from a woman named Bonnie Graham. She gives a presentation called the 4 User Questions. Here are the 4 things that you must cover. Because we know people read instructions, but not like a novel. Remember, they're not reading it from cover to cover. They want to know 4 things. Why do I care? How do I? What is it? And why did it do that? So we want to, hold on, let me back up. We want to talk about why do I care? And that goes right back to writing to people instead of writing about the technology. I don't care that your product searches a database. I don't. I care that when I search, I can get the results I'm looking for. So don't tell me that there's a relational database back there, because I don't care. I assume you've done something, and good for you for doing that. But I care, how do I search? How do I search to get the results I'm looking for? So tell me the part I care about, which is I can search using these wildcards. Don't tell me it's a relational database that uses wildcards. I don't care. Tell me I can search using wildcards. Then, how do I? Tell me how to do the search. If there's something weird on the screen, maybe there's a checkbox that could limit or expand my search options, tell me what that is. And then when I get results I didn't expect, or I get an error message, tell me, why did it do that? What do I need to refine my search, or is there some other problem? Why did it do that? So that I can get out of it. If you know about DITA, these map out nicely to DITA types. If you don't know a thing about DITA, if you've just heard me say DITA and you went, I don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But you want to answer these 4 questions for your products. If you can do just these things I've just talked about, your customers will love you. Now, here's something else to think about, the ways that people consume information. There are 4 ways people consume information. Visual, which means they want pictures, line drawings, flow charts, videos. Auditory, they want sound. Or conversational writing. If you are doing writing, they want conversational writing. Read, write, they want words, sentences, labels, and pictures. Or kinesthetic, which is hands-on. They want touch, descriptive writing, text and pictures. If you use a picture of things moving, show arrows. If you're doing video, show things moving, those sorts of things. Now, most people have a strong preference for 2 or more. I, for example, am a strong read-write learner and a strong kinesthetic. I like words, and I like to fiddle with things. Something to think about is that you are going to be creating content that meets your preferences. So until I learned about this, it should not surprise you to know that the content I developed had lots of words and lots of how do I instructions. Not so much with pictures. I'm not a strong visual information consumer. I didn't have many pictures. So if you are creating content to meet your information needs, those may not be the needs of your audience. So think about that. Now, another thing I always like to think, you keep hearing this, because of YouTube, because of Pinterest, because of insert thing here, we all want more pictures. If we just turned all of our product instructions into pictures, everybody would be happy. Well, think about that. That's what IKEA did. For very good business reasons, they did that. Think about how many people complain about IKEA's instructions. That's because they're not visual information consumers. They don't want the pictures. They want words, or they want a video, or they want something other than those pictures. So every time somebody at your company says, we should just get rid of all written instructions and replace them all with videos, that'll work. No, that's not going to work. Now, videos in addition to the words you're providing, absolutely. So that people who want videos have those available to them, absolutely. But don't just go with one information mode, because you're going to miss out the other 3. Not a good idea. So you want to do steps to support tasks. You want to have pictures. If you can only make one change to your product instructions, try conceptual graphics. I have increased customer satisfaction with product instructions by 25 points simply by putting in conceptual graphics. That's all. It's the only change we did. Add 25 points customer happiness. Woohoo! Conversational writing style is also good. And textured word descriptions. These are in orders of importance. I would do textured word descriptions last. Don't worry if you don't know what that is. That's fine. All right, so let's put this all together. We've got 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure there's questions, time for questions. So let's put it all together. What does this all mean? Every company out there is trying to improve their customer experience. They want their customers to have an improved customer experience. Customer acquisition costs are high for most companies. Most companies are not in the position of being the only company out there making that product. And even the companies who are in that position still have to spend a lot of money because odds are good. People aren't immediately delighted or don't immediately know they've got that problem. So customer acquisition costs are high for most companies. It's easier and cheaper to sell to existing customers. So once you've acquired that customer, it's easier and cheaper to sell to them. Reducing customer churn costs increases sales, increases profitability. Again, it's cheaper and easier to sell to existing customers. If you can keep them from running out the back door, you're going to make more money. Customer experience is concerned with how a customer interacts with the company across the board. And customers use product instructions, which means product instructions have to be looked at as part of the customer experience initiative. They have to be. Because product instructions are the post-sales customer experience. Now, if you're thinking, well, customers will just call customer support, the answer to that is maybe. A certain number of them will. Certainly the auditory information consumers will. You can't stop them. They want someone to tell them. But if we can reduce the number of calls to customer support by helping people solve their problems, we can improve customer experience and reduce customer support. Customer support is the most expensive way to teach customers how to use your product. You don't want that. People are also upset and angry at the quality of your product instructions. I'm here to tell you, if you think you're special, you're probably not. And clear and useful product instructions are a competitive advantage. I think they should be a marketing message. We care enough about you, we've made good product instructions. That's a marketing message. Remember, 90% of people are upset and angry about product instructions. Clear differentiator, we've got good instructions. Helpful and useful product instructions are user-focused, user-centric, active voice present tense, appropriately written to the audience. Again, I want to emphasize they are not simple as possible or dumbed down. They're appropriate to the audience that you are talking to. Short sentences, short paragraphs, short sections, supporting all 4 information consumption modes and addressing the customer question. That's what we need to do. There's the problem, here's the solution. Woohoo! And I made it with time to spare for questions. Yahoo! So, excellent. So I can't see the questions window, so I'm hoping that my friend who is helping me will let me know. Now is the time, by the way, for any questions that you may have. And feel free to type them in your questions window, and I'm hoping that we have some.
Hey, Sharon, the first question has come in was referring back to the stats you were doing earlier in the webinar. And the question is, are these stats for B2B, B2C, or both?
They are currently for both. It's a mix. For the survey I'm doing this year, I'm actually asking people, I'm doing a skip question, well, it's not a skip question, it's a jump question. People can go and answer the survey both ways, but I'm actually pulling it apart because I'm interested in the B2B difference, B2C difference. I'm interested, and I will, just for laughs, I will include a link to that survey, and you guys could socialize it if you'd like. That would really be very, very helpful. So yeah, right now the results are mixed. I'm hoping for 2014 we'll be able to start pulling them apart because I think that it may be different, and I'm interested in how it may be different. So that's the answer to that question.
Excellent. The next question that's come in is, can you briefly describe what you mean by conceptual graphics? Do you mean flowcharts or something else?
Excellent question. By conceptual graphics, I do mean flowcharts. For example, I'm working with a client right now who writes training materials for oil and gas refineries. And so, we kind of, I think we can all agree, want people to understand how to do oil and gas refineries safely. And so we will, at the beginning of a training module, show the entire piece of equipment that is being trained on. And then as we walk through the training of the equipment, we show a smaller and smaller piece. That's one way to do conceptual graphics. Another way is if you are doing products that have, for example, a flow of information, You could do a flow chart showing that overall flow, and then each section that talks about that burrows down into one of the flows, you can start breaking it apart into pieces. So that's what I mean. And I did that, the conceptual graphic flowchart thing, some years ago when I was documentation manager for an industrial automation company. And we did that, and that was the place where we increased customer happiness with product instructions by like 20% in 1 year. That's it. That's all we did. That's all we did. And customers were immediately happy. So clearly we had a lot of visual learners whose needs we were now meeting, which was fantastic. So any other questions? Oh, surely you guys have more questions.
Yes, there's a bunch more. So the next
Good.
question is, how do you prioritize which audience to focus on when rethinking instructions when you have two main audience types who require very different approaches to instructions?
I would go by the size of those audiences. If you have, for example, systems administrators and other people, in the actual numbers, your systems administrators are fewer. And to be honest, they are smarter in that domain, probably. I usually go, if all things being equal, you want to create, and this is much more detailed than I could get into here, on slides, but all things being equal, beginning users move quickly into intermediate users. So intermediate users, it's a normal distribution curve. Intermediate users are 2/3 of your audience. It's one standard deviation out. Expert users you can pretty much trust to figure stuff out because they're experts. And beginners move quickly from beginners into intermediate. So I would focus, you get the most bang for your buck out of supporting your intermediate users. And if you've got users who are, completely different audiences, it isn't based on experience, it's based on domains of knowledge, I'd go for the domain that has, if you will, the most people in it, the bulk of your users. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. The next question is, can you make these slides available after the webinar?
Yes, they're going to be up on SlideShare, and I'll be sending an email to you tomorrow that includes a link to the SlideShare, hopefully a link to the recording, because that'll hopefully be ready by then, and a link to the survey. So yes, you guys can have that, absolutely.
Excellent. And the last question that we've received at this point is, it seemed like a lot of this was geared more towards print help. What about web help? What are the strategies for this in regards to headings, paragraph length, etc.?
Exactly the same. It doesn't matter. Corporate blog, marketing material, printed instructions, web help, it does not matter. This is how our brains work. And if this is how our brains work, then that's what we have to do. And the delivery method doesn't matter.
Thank you. And the next question that's come in is, what are textured word descriptions?
I knew somebody was going to say that. All right. So, for example, I have a client I work with off and on. They're writing maintenance instructions for big trucks. They won't let me go out and play in the yard, which is a bummer because I want to go out and drive some of those big trucks. They're like forklifts and things. And when you're doing maintenance, the way surfaces feel matters sometimes, especially if you're under the truck in a dark kind of reaching sort of way. If the thing that they are looking for feels rough or feels smooth or whatever, that's what I mean by textured. You actually want to include the texture of the thing if it's relevant. Obviously, software doesn't have a texture, right? So it's going to depend on the products that you are documenting. But even haptic devices like iPhones, etc., there are different ways to press things. And those textured kinds of word descriptions help kinesthetic people a lot because we know what we're looking for. And if you are a kinesthetic kind of person, you just totally got what I was saying. And if you're not, that's fine. There's no right or wrong here. It's just, kind of how it is. So that's it. That's what I meant by textured word. There we go. I hope that helps.
Yes. Do you have some examples of that from from the TechCom side of things?
Examples of textured word descriptions?
Yes.
I'm thinking cash registers. I wrote product instructions for cash registers for a consumer company for quite some time. And some of the keys, and you guys know this if you've ever used that kind of thing, some of the keys, because people pen key, some of the keys have different ridges on them. And I could see it being possible to mention those ridges. I could see that. Not necessarily all the time, but for some things I could see doing that. Certainly when you put the key in and turned it to the manager position, for some of the cash registers it gave an extra snick to let you know that it was in this special mode. And I would definitely refer to that snick feeling when you turned it, to just let people know that it was in that mode. So that's the best I can do on that one, but I hope that helped.
I'm just waiting to see if the person responds, but at this time that was all the questions we have today.
Excellent. And it's 11 o'clock straight up, and I'm so happy. I like that because I know you guys have a lot of busy stuff to get done, and if your week looks like mine, getting an hour out is a big deal. So I want to thank you very, very much. If you have questions later, etc., please feel free to send me an email, follow me on Twitter, etc., etc., and I want to thank you for your time. I hope you learned something of value. And again, big shout out to DCL for supporting us here and hosting this for us. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Off you go. Go do something amazing. Thank you, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.